And welcome into the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Show. Gary Stein along with UMBC head coach Ryan Odom. A little later on in the show, we'll meet one of Coach Odom's players. Josh Rosario from Miami, Florida will be our guest. And of course, John Feinstein, my broadcast partner on the broadcast on ESPN3, will be here later to discuss some issues surrounding college football and basketball. But first, let's talk UMBC basketball. Coach, welcome back in. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
Let's start with the Maine game, which was the opener here at the UMBC Event Center. Trailing at the half and then coming back in the second half for a 9-point win. What was the difference for you in the second half in that game?
Yeah, I mean, certainly credit to Maine initially in that first half. I mean, we were kind of back on our heels. They played, good basketball on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they were very efficient, getting the ball in their sweet spots in the inside and then also making some timely threes. I felt like our guys were, like I said, a little bit back on our heels. We weren't attacking. We weren't as aggressive as we needed to be from a defensive perspective. And then offensively, we were a tad bit tentative and missed a couple of shots there. And that kind of compounded things, down the stretch. And I think they had a 31-19, lead at the half. Mm-hmm. And so we talked to our guys about being resilient, being a little more gritty on defense, trying to, stick with our game plan and do it better than we did in the first half. And I thought we came out of the second half and played pretty good ball.
And you had a nice run in the second half. I want to say it was 17-4. A little bit of a theme that I've noticed in the last few games, especially in conference games, Arkel Lamar off the bench in the second half. He can get on fire real quick. Like he had 3 threes in a row, and then he had 3 field goals in another spurt and all that. He seems to be able to give the team a little bit of oomph when it needs it, especially in the second half.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Arkel's obviously been a starter for us here at UMBC, pretty much since his arrival. Maybe not so much his first year, but certainly last year, he started pretty much every game that he was available for, minus his injuries. And, this year we brought him off the bench. We felt we needed a little bit of a punch off the bench. Mm-hmm. And, Jordan kind of played that role for us last year. And, he's starting to get comfortable with that. Now, will that continue? Will I keep him there? I'm not sure yet. Mm-hmm. But certainly, he's done a nice job, coming off the bench. He's playing better, right now than he was several games ago.
Mm-hmm. And then after the Maine game, the Retrievers hit the road for the first time in conference play up to New England, Hartford first, and then at UMass Lowell. Let's tackle the Hartford game first. That's a heartbreaker, a 2-point overtime loss. You guys from the free throw line, again, deep in the game, like late in the second half, had chances to extend the lead maybe to a 2-possession game, but it just fell short.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Hartford's an experienced team. They're well coached. They came out on fire at the beginning of the game. We had a tough time guarding their stuff early on. And then we settled into the game and kept within striking distance at halftime. I think we got it to 28-25, maybe going into the last 3 minutes or 2 minutes. And then they went on another run there to kind of finish the half, and I think it was maybe 35-28. So we weren't out of it at that point. It was a situation where we were still within striking distance and just had to play a little bit better. Defensively in the second half, I thought our guys were lights out. Mm-hmm. We get up 57-52 with not a lot of time left. Certainly had our chances to win, but credit, Hartford for getting it into overtime and then finishing it with by two in that segment. But we still did have a shot there. Ricky had, I thought, a decent look with 2 seconds to go. That would have actually won the game there, a 3. But it's a tough place to play, and we knew that was going to be a hard game for us. I thought our guys played well. Certainly well enough to win.
And then the Retrievers stayed on the road. They went right from Hartford to Boston and went to play UMass Lowell, a very good offensive team. In fact, the top offensive team in the conference. And I thought you guys did a pretty good job defensively there, but UMass Lowell has a lot of firepower. Christian Lutete, their junior transfer, put up 26 points, and he was really the difference in the game.
We haven't had a lot of guys, that have gone over 20 on us in games, and that was something that we were very disappointed with after the game. For him to get 26 on us is not certainly, we weren't doing our job there. And he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong; he can really shoot, and he gets to the basket and makes layups. But we did not put our best foot forward in that game. Lowell was without their leader and Jones in the game as well. And, I thought their other Jones came off the bench and gave them a big lift. He actually hadn't played in 5 games. And, sometimes when there's an opening like that, kids take advantage of it, and he certainly did. And Latete played an excellent game.
You guys have trailed at the half in your last 9 games against D1 opponents. Slow starts, and we saw it on the road trip.
Yeah.
Is that a concern? What do you do about that?
Yeah, no doubt it's a concern. We want to be attacking the other team, and what's happening right now is they're attacking us. And so that's something that we've talked to our guys about. We're working on it in practice. Our offense is certainly not what it's been in years past, and that is what it is. We're not as good there right now. It doesn't mean we can't eventually get there. By the end of the season, we're constantly trying to tweak that and make the guys more comfortable. From a defensive perspective, we're doing well in certain categories. But there's certain ones that we're not doing very well with, and we've got to really try to improve upon those. And that's where we're at this point.
So off the road now, the Retrievers come back home for a couple of games this week, starting Wednesday night against the Binghamton Bearcats, and then on Saturday against Albany.
Yeah.
Let's tackle Binghamton first. They have a really high volume shooter in Sam Sessoms, the freshman, one of the leading scorers in the conference, one of the top rookies in the conference. Talk a little bit about them and their start so far.
Yeah, I love their team. Tommy's done a nice job with their squad. I know their record's not, what
Quite
they want it to be, but they've been in a lot of games, and they've played some hard teams. At Michigan, they're in the game. They're down, a few at half, and they end up losing similar score that we had against Penn State. They've done really well. They're 1-1 right now in the league. They have a bye week leading into our game. And, they're a tough team, and they're down Thomas Bruce right now. Right. And then the other kid, number 5 as well, hasn't been healthy. So, I think if they can get everything back, in order there, they get their full roster back, they're going to be a tough out for any team in our conference. Yeah. And, for us, we have a very small margin for error. And, we've got to play really well to win any game. And, for us right now, we've got to kind of get back to it. There's some good things that we could take from the Hartford game and a lot of bad stuff that we can learn from, the UMass Lowell game. I thought it was kind of a tale of 2 games. And we were pretty lethargic in the UMass Lowell game. We weren't really attentive to scouting report situations. And offensively, we were pretty tentative, and we had a few too many turnovers, walks and things like that we can certainly control. But against Binghamton, we're going to have to play well. They're a good team. Sessions is an excellent player, and he's not the only one that they have. Certainly, they've got a 1,000-point scorer in J.C. Shao, who's had a great career. So and they're experienced. You look up and down their roster, they have older guys. And so we're going to have to play well to win.
And then Albany on Saturday, it may not quite be what they've been over the last couple of years, but they're still a dangerous team.
Yeah, no question. They're well coached. Coach Brown has done an amazing job at Albany, and they were playing well, leading into conference. But we've seen this before. The last couple of years, I think they've started 0-3, in conference, and then they just find a way to turn it around, and all of a sudden they're right there at the end. So we know that there's no sleepwalks in this conference, and we've got to make sure that we're playing our best and more competitive.
Right. So once again, Wednesday night, it's the Retrievers and the Binghamton Bearcats, 7 o'clock here at the Event Center. And then Saturday afternoon, I think that's a 1 o'clock game, if I'm not mistaken. 1 o'clock also at the Event Center. We'll take a time out here. When we come back, John Feinstein, my broadcast partner, will join us. We'll talk about some news and notes around college basketball and college football, and a very interesting story about a young man that Ryan Odom actually had contact with last year in March. We'll tell you about that when the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Show continues right after this. Welcome back to the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Show. Gary Stein along with head coach Ryan Odom. Also joined now by my broadcast partner, New York Times bestselling author John Feinstein with us. John, welcome in. How are you?
Very pleased with myself, Gary, that I was able to dig my car out from the snow today without having a heart attack. I don't think that was a mild undertaking.
No, absolutely true. And you did it all by yourself?
Did it all by myself.
Wow.
We have a 2-car garage that fits 1 car. I'm sure most parents can relate to that. So my car was pretty buried by the time I got out to it this morning.
All right, sounds good. Hey, John, since we last spoke, the NCAA football college championship has been determined, and Clemson beat Alabama in what I can only term as an upset, and quite an upset, 44-16. The reason why I bring it up is because one of the last times that we did speak, we talked about the chances of an expanded college playoffs. You had a good solution about it. I thought it was very reasonable, and I thought the NCAA was leaning that way as well. But now all of a sudden we hear that talk has been quashed. What do you think about that and the fact that the NCAA doesn't want to move away from the 4-team playoff now?
Well, a couple of things, Gary. First of all, just to clarify, the NCAA is not technically in charge of the college football playoff. It's run by the 5 power conferences.
That is true.
And, of course, Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They make the decisions. Their presidents, they're the commissioners of those 5 leagues and athletic directors. And I knew that they weren't going to change the playoff, because if they expanded it, and I'll get to what I think they ought to do in a second, but if they expanded it to 8 teams and they said, okay, we're going to have the 5 champions from the power conferences, we're going to guarantee the group of 5 at least 1 spot in the field, and they could have more. Let's say they had 2 undefeated teams in a season, but guarantee at least 1 spot. That's giving the little guys a spot at the big boy table, and the presidents and ADs and commissioners in the Power 5 conference have no desire to do that.
Right.
They don't want to see UCF beat Auburn, as it did last year in the Peach Bowl, in a tournament game heading toward a national championship game. They don't want to see Boise State beat Oklahoma. They don't want to see Utah beat Alabama. These are games that have actually happened in the past in bowl games. But they don't want it to happen when there's a national championship at stake, and they don't want to share any more of the money than they're already sharing. So the fact that an 8-team playoff, as I suggested and have been suggesting for years, would make absolute sense, would be the fairest thing to do, and would be easy to do logistically, because all you do is you get rid of the conference championship games, which are nothing more than a money grab, and you play the first round, the quarterfinals, on that first Saturday in December, or that first weekend in December, if you want to stretch it out for TV purposes, and you play it at home sites. So you give the regular season meaning, because you're playing to try and be in the top 4 and get seeded, or you're playing to try and be in the top 8 and get into the tournament. Then you play the semifinals on New Year's Day. None of this December 29th stuff. You play it on New Year's Day in a year when the Rose Bowl is not one of the 2 semifinal sites. You play a semifinal, the Rose Bowl, and a semifinal on New Year's Day, and then a week later you play the championship game. Now, this makes perfect sense, but of course it'll never happen.
What would the matchups had been, in your format there? What would, from this past season?
Well, in my format, Ryan, the 4-5 game. Who was the 4th seed? Oklahoma. The 4-5 game would have been between Oklahoma and UCF, and it would have been played at UCF, because I would have said if you finish undefeated, you're guaranteed a home game. There were 4 undefeated teams in Division I this year. That's unusual. Usually it's 1 or 2 max, but there were 4 this year. So I would have had Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and UCF hosting, and then I would have had Oklahoma playing at UCF. I would probably have had Ohio State playing at Notre Dame. Pretty good matchup. I would have had Georgia playing at Clemson, and you pick your 8th seed. I'm not sure who I would have picked as the 8th seed, playing at Alabama.
Sounds like a pretty good field. Unfortunately,
it wouldn't have been a bad weekend of football, I don't think.
Yeah, you could have just put UMBC there, against Alabama. That would have been good.
Sure.
Yeah, you could have cross-promoted the 2 sports, basically. Hey, John.
Maybe a little cross team could have gone.
Yeah. Hey, John, I wanted to move on to a great story that I think we all have an interest. Well, everybody's going to have an interest in it. That was brought up by SBNation.com. It's about Kyle Guy, University of Virginia basketball player, who on social media kind of wrote a letter to himself, and it just kind of detailed a lot of what many college basketball and college athletes must be feeling. It's the anxiety they feel being in big-time college athletics. I know I'm not doing it justice by that quick description, but Coach Odom coached against that young man last year. I know that you cover the ACC and probably are very familiar with him. I just wanted to get your take on the Kyle Guy story.
Well, I think clearly all the tension Kyle Guy feels is Ryan and the UMBC's fault. Because of what happened last March in Charlotte. Look, there is a lot of pressure on kids playing at any level, to me, at any level of college sports, of high school sports, unfortunately down to peewee sports. They need help in handling it. They need help first from their parents, they need help from their teammates, and they certainly need help from their coaches. Kyle Guy is in I think, a very positive atmosphere at the University of Virginia playing for Tony Bennett. But I know, as you said, Gary, from covering the ACC for so many years, the kinds of pressures that are brought to bear on the young men who play, again, any sport in the ACC, although the ACC is particularly known for basketball. So I think it took a lot of guts for Kyle Guy, I think, to talk publicly about the tension he feels and how he's trying to deal with it. And maybe more kids should do it, if only because it might be cathartic to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. I mean, obviously, it's something that's near and dear to my heart with, my son Connor's situation, and struggle with OCD and what he's had to. I've seen it firsthand what he's had to deal with, and I think not Kyle Guy, but Kevin Love actually came out with his own struggles. With panic attacks and anxiety, back during last season. And, I think that certainly could be therapeutic. I mean, they need to seek, professional help there. And, certainly, Kyle Guy coming out now and explaining, kind of the situation, that was happening with him at the time, can be not only therapeutic for him, but it can help others. It helps the next Kyle Guy feel comfortable enough to come out and say, hey, I am like that. I'm struggling with this issue too. And it's okay to be vulnerable at times. And, I think we live in a very, very tough world right now from a social media standpoint. Every time, these kids make a great play, it's on social media, but conversely, every time they make a really bad play, or they have a bad loss, or they do something incorrect, it's out there, and there's no getting it back, and so there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. It's tough to deal with. I mean, you just look at what Virginia's.
You're absolutely right, Ryan, and I think you used the right word, vulnerable, because we're all vulnerable in different ways.
Yeah.
And whether it's someone Connor's age or someone Kyle Guy's age or someone Kevin Love's age, the more they can do to, say, look, this is a problem. This is something a lot of people deal with. And there shouldn't be any embarrassment or shame in saying you have this issue.
Exactly.
The social media aspect, I think you raise, is important too. I saw something on Twitter, this is a couple months ago, and then I saw it on ESPN. It was a so-called highlight of a kid on, I think it was either a D3 game or it might have been a high school game, and a kid is on the free throw line, lined up waiting for someone else to shoot. And he loses his balance, and he just falls and goes down on his butt. And I don't know if you guys saw it at any point, but as I saw it pop up first on the internet and then on TV, I'm thinking, why is somebody showing this highlight? What is the point exactly? Because other people laugh at someone falling on their butt? Stuff like that happens to people all the time, whether they're playing basketball or walking down the street. I almost fell on my butt today walking into a restaurant.
Hey, I fell at the game the other day against Maine.
So should that be on ESPN?
and we caught that, Coach.
But I think the more people are willing to talk about their vulnerabilities, the better it is.
Ryan, speaking of social media, how much time do you spend talking to your players about the pros and cons, the good and the bad of social media?
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly, it's a topic that we try to discuss with our guys. Less time is better on it. certainly as you're leading up to games and, your focus has got to be on whatever, your schoolwork, it just can't take away from what your objective is. Mm-hmm. And I think too many times, I'm guilty of it, I think we all are, you just go right to your phone and you look at it. It's just a different time we live in. And, so we need to do a little bit better. I know my wife's on me about, trying to stay off of that thing, especially when I come home, after work.
Right.
It's a tough thing, because things happen really fast and you want to be on top of it, but there's also a lot of wasted time, mm-hmm. That happens. And so we've given them statistics. We've shown them, videos that, would be the counter argument, to allowing guys to, check out their phones all the time. I'm not one of those coaches that takes it away. But if I needed to, I would. I wouldn't be afraid to do it.
Right. John, you and I are in the same age demographic. Have you fully adjusted to this new social media, the Twitterverse and just everything involved?
Well, I got on Twitter a few years ago, Gary, at the insistence of my publisher.
Right.
My book publishers. They felt I needed a social media presence just to kind of keep people updated about what I was working on, books coming out, book reviews, things like that. Unfortunately, as Ryan points out, it can be addictive. You can spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
I tweeted on Friday about a guy named John Heisler, who worked at Notre Dame for 41 years.
Absolutely.
He's one of the best SIDs in the history of athletics. Great guy, really good at what he did. And Notre Dame has decided to make some financial cutbacks, and because he was near the top of the ladder, having been at Notre Dame for 41 years, he got fired. And I tweeted, just about how this was awful, that it would happen to a guy like John Heisler. Well, there were so many responses to that tweet. Now, most of them were people who knew John, worked with John, worked for John, saying, oh, my God, this is awful. But, of course, there were the usual, people saying, you just hate Notre Dame and you don't know what really happened. And I spent much too much time responding to those tweets. So it can be an issue. And what I have to learn to do, and I think what others do, is just block those people and move on.
Yeah.
John, and as always, you've got the last word, my friend. Thank you.
My pleasure, as always. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.
You've got it. John,
all right, John.
John, thank you so much. That's John Feinstein, my color partner on the broadcast on ESPN3. And Ryan and I will come back in just a minute. We'll meet one of his players, Josh Rosario, from the Miami area, will be joining us when we return right after this.
Respect is hard work. Respect is dedication.
Respect is earned on the court or on the field.
Respect doesn't judge based on sexual orientation or gender identity.
Respect is being the first conference to partner with the You Can Play project.
And the first conference in the LGBT Sports Safe Founders Club.
Respect coaches, players, and the game.
Respect similarities.
Respect differences.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
And welcome back to the show. Gary Stein, along with UMBC head coach Ryan Odom, joined by a gentleman, and the team just came back from Boston, a game against UMass Lowell. This guy in the middle had 40 relatives, family and friends, etc., at the game against UMass Lowell. Josh Rosario, sophomore guard, UMBC. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Tell us why you had 40 people there.
Well, I was born in Boston, raised there by my parents, obviously. So I was about 6 years old. My dad was born in Puerto Rico. My mom was born in Boston, so my mom had family there. Her sisters, she has 3 sisters. My dad's parents were there along with his sister, uncles. I had a lot of cousins there, from the Marines to friends of my dad's who used to play with him in high school. And as long as well as my dad's head coach for high school basketball.
Wow.
Ryan, that must have been really special just to even know that he needed 40 tickets.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then all of a sudden you see them, they've got their retriever gear on, and you can see the black and gold there. I mean, just a special thing. It's tough because, he's obviously from Miami, so that's a long distance here from, Baltimore.
Right.
Like Joe going to Wisconsin, or, Nolan in Cleveland, or Max, with New Hampshire or whatever. And a lot of times, guys get to go back home, and it's tough for him to get we're not playing in Miami. Next year we play at Florida Gulf Coast, but That's about as close as we'll get, south. And so anytime you have those situations, it's really special to be able to play in front of your family and friends.
So you moved from the Boston area when you were 6. Do you remember much about Boston?
Not really, only that it was cold. I do remember my dad's mom's house, my grandmother. I remember waking up and always going to my uncle's house, walking down the street, going to Dunkin' Donuts, but I don't really remember that much of Boston.
Well, and there's a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner in Boston, so
Yeah.
right. But it's interesting you say that because you don't remember much about Boston, yet you're still a Celtics fan as opposed to a Heat fan.
Yeah. Reason why I was a Celtics fan, I remember my dad used to take me to Celtics games a lot when I was little. When we moved to Miami, we didn't really go to a lot of Miami games. We usually stuck with Boston around the time where Rondo, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Garnett, Perkins was there. So he was a diehard Celtics fan.
I would have said Bird and like McHale
Parrish,
DJ.
Right, exactly. How did you find him?
Yeah, I mean, we actually found him, through that same connection that KJ Mara, his
Puerto Rico, Orlando.
His AAU coach and his high school coach is very close with Coach Dixon. And he called and told us about him. We had a scholarship in the spring. Came up and checked things out and came with your brother and mom and father at the time. And, that was right when he was just getting healthy enough to be able to move around. And we'll get into that in a second. But he came in for the visit, and it felt right for him. I don't want to speak for him, but it felt right for him and certainly was right for us. And we were able to get Josh here.
How much did you know about UMBC before they started recruiting you?
At the time, none.
Nothing. So how did you feel about the chemistry?
When I first had found out about it, I talked to Billing, who was my mentor at the time, and he told me that Coach Rhino was a great friend of him. We ended up calling when I was at the hospital with my father, and he was talking to me for hours, talked to me for a couple of days, and it just seemed like it was the right move to do. And I trusted my coaches and my dad's decision, and I just went with it, and it was probably one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah. So you mentioned your dad was in the hospital, and we really need to talk about this story. Your dad is Carlos, and he is a highway trooper in Miami. A couple of years ago, right around the time you were making this decision, he was unfortunately hit by a driver who was texting while driving while he was working, and through the grace of God and miracles, he's been able to survive and thrive. It's been a couple of years now. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that meant to your family?
Yeah, of course. Well, at the time before it happened, me and my family, we were going through like a very rough time financially, with my dad having to work mostly all the time, not seeing him at nighttime. And I honestly thought like it was like I don't want to say like it was like meant to happen, but I just think it was like something God did to give him a break from working so much. Like, it was to the point where I wouldn't see my dad for days, but he would show up at my games in his uniform to come watch me play. So what it meant to my family was, it was something like, we can't take life for granted, because I saw him before he went to work, and it could have been the last time I saw him going to work. So it was just something that, it was really hard, my biggest hardship I went through, but it brought me closer to him than I was before, because I used to take him for granted, and I wasn't as close to him as I am now. So
when you hear something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's special. It really is. I mean, life throws you all kinds of adverse situations, and we actually talked after the game the other day, and I let him go out with his family and eat dinner with that crew of folks. But after the game, I talked to the team about we've lost 2 games in a row, but this isn't adversity. Like, this is fun to try to figure this out.
Right.
And play better and all that. That's adversity. All of a sudden, your father, your loved one, is in a difficult situation. You're not sure if he's going to make it or not. And, by the grace of God, like you said, day by day, he just gets stronger and stronger. And there's no give, in his dad and his family. His mom's basically living at the hospital, with her husband, and his older brother's helping out and taking care of him. And obviously he was old enough to take care of himself too, but they were all chipping in and just making it happen. And that's what you do when you're forced in and thrust into an adverse situation. All right, you focus on your family, you focus on your faith and your friends, and really everything else kind of takes a back seat at that point. And that's a great example of just perseverance and looking out for one another and never giving up. And that's what the Rosario family did in that situation, and we all can learn from it.
So I saw the picture. You guys did like a family picture at the game, and first of all, your dad looks great. You guys look exactly like each other, both very handsome men. But how's he doing? How's he doing emotionally, physically?
Actually, he's doing very good. I don't know if you guys know, but after the accident happened, about 4 months later, he was already walking out of the hospital. So as of right now, he's doing good. He just started working again. Last Wednesday, he had a ceremony where they flew him in from the same helicopter with the rescue team that rescued him. Brought him in, and they basically celebrated him coming back to work. So emotionally and physically, he's doing very well. He's got a very close relationship to God now, and I thank God that he's still here every day.
And how are you doing in school and basketball, in life?
I'm doing good. School, I finished with a 3.0. Basketball, I'm hanging in there, just learning every day from Coach Odom, trying to do my best out there on the court.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're really proud of Josh and what he's accomplished since he's been here so far. And certainly, we always want our guys to do well academically. I don't have to worry one day about this guy over here and what he's doing, off the court. Like, he's trying to do his best each and every opportunity that presents itself. And he's doing well. He got in the other day in the game and performed pretty well. And he's competing in practice. Unfortunately, he's had some injuries. This year he had concussion, which knocked him out. And he fought back from that one. And there's no break in this guy right here.
I saw the end of that game. You had a pretty nice take to the hoop on that one. Pretty nice. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. It was a really, really inspiring story.
Yeah, good job, brother.
Yeah. He's a good young man. Josh Rosario, sophomore guard for UMBC. That'll do it for the show. Thank you both, and thank you to Steve Levy and everybody involved, and we'll see you next week on the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Show.